What's going on, guys? Basi here, and this is the second project on 100 web projects series. So we are going to build this product slider or carousel using HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. So here is how it works. If I click the next button, the next slide is going to show up, and there is also a smooth transition between the last and first slide. And as I'm going through these slides, you see this minimap is getting updated. An interesting part of this carousel is that if I click any of those, you can see that its respective slide is going to show up in here. So without any further ado, let's just get started. Here I already created a folder called carousel, and within that I placed these images. These images are also available in the description section below. You can download it and use it in your own projects. Okay, so new file. I'm going to start with index.html. style.css, and finally the script.js for the JavaScript. Okay, back into index.html. I'm using image, so it's a clean boilerplate of HTML. Here I'm going to write carousel, and this is how we are going to design it. div.row, col2, and col10. Okay, so in col2 I'm placing the minimap in here. I call that minimap. It could be anything. You can call that whatever you want to. But in col10, I'm going to place the actual slides, the carousel, the next and previous button. So here, div.items, and then div.item. Therein, I'm going to place these images. Let's watch one, and let's just duplicate it. Watch 2, and this is watch 3. Okay, in col10 we have this carousel, and inside that I'm gonna add this slides container. Also we have a slide wherein I'm gonna add this image. Okay, let's duplicate it twice. Here's the second watch, and this is the third one. Okay, inside the carousel also we have some buttons here, and this button is gonna come from the font awesome angle, I believe, angle right, and this is the next button. Duplicate it. This is the previous button. This is angle lift. Okay, that is it. And finally we need to import the font awesome right at the top in here. So back into font awesome, cdnjs.com, search for font awesome and grab this link, all.main.css within this font awesome directory coming from cdnjs.cloudflare.com. Okay, and create this link, add that content delivery network link or CDN link right here. That is it. Now let's run this in live server. Okay, so this is it. It looks a little bit terrible, but we'll fix it in a bit. Now finally, let's do all necessary plumbing between CSS and JavaScript files as well. So here, style.css at the bottom of the page, I'm gonna add the script of script.js. Save it and then go to style.css. And I'm going to say the box sizing to be border box. It includes the padding and border to an element's total width and height. That's what it does. And body is margin 0, a padding 0. Okay, what else? Display it as grade, and then place it at the center. Place items, in case if you didn't know that before, place item, just place all the children horizontally and vertically at the center of the page. And obviously it needs to have a height of 100 vertical height. Okay, and finally there is this row which is going to have a display of flicks, and this col2 is going to have a width of 16.6%, and the col10 is going to have a width of 84.4%. If you're curious to know how do I come up with these percentages, well, basically there are 12 columns. Col2 and col10, that's a total of 12 columns, and 100 divided by 12, that's 8.3%. So I just multiply that by 2 and 10 respectively to get these, come up with these values. So that's basically taking the 2 portion of the total 12 columns and just taking the 10 portion. Anyway, let's just go ahead. Then we have this carousel, and just gonna have a position of relative because we need to position the next and previous button absolute to this container right here. And before that, let's fix the images of the minimap there. And I'm gonna call 90 pixels here and a height of 90 pixels. There we go. And then if I flip back to here, you can see they are placed in the right place there. Okay, finally, let's add a margin of 0 auto to place it at the center. And then we have this slides container. I'm gonna display this as flex. Okay, you may have a question that why do I place these images inside this slide? I could have directly added it inside this slides container. The reason for that is that these images could have a caption too. You can add a caption here, which I'm not going to cover in this tutorial because the video is going to get very, very long. You can position that caption absolute to this slide and do whatever you want. So that will be a very nice carousel. Okay, so that's the reason, in case if you're wondering why I did it that way. And then the width of 579 pixels. I already come up with these width and height, and I'll be using that, obviously. Okay, also there are the images which are also going to have these same specific width and height. I'm using this way of CSS reference slide image. Actually, the best practice is to actually do it this way, like carousel, and inside that carousel there is this slides container and all that. And the best way of doing that is using Sass, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial, so we're not just gonna cover that, okay? Back into here, okay, it looks good. You can see that they are floating beside each other, and now as a final step, I have to place these right here at the center of this slide, and also going all the way up until here, I'm gonna say that overflow is hidden. And if I say that, go back here, you see that is we are kind of near to the final design there. And the final step, there is this next button and also the previous button. Okay, I want to have a padding of like 0.2, actually 5 rem. Okay, and there is this background color. I'm gonna go with transparent. I don't want any border and I don't want any outline too. Okay. What else? Let's add a font size of 1.5 rem. And okay, just final thing here is a cursor pointer. And if I flip back here, okay, we need to position that absolute. Okay, you remember from earlier part here, we positioned this relative. So this position is going to be absolute to its parent. From the top, it's going to be 50%. Okay, and that this next button, from the right it is 0. And then if I flip back here, you can see that now those are placed at the right place, only that is not working just yet. And that also I need to design this item as well. Okay, let's add a border of 2 pixels solid CCC. And that it also has an item of active. We'll manage this through JavaScript later, 2 pixels solid, and this is going to be a darker color. Okay, back here, this is how it's gonna look. Well, let's add a margin of like 0.5 rem. Okay, what's wrong? Okay, sounds like, yeah, this is supposed to go here. Actually, and I also add this border radius of like 3 pixels for this. Flip back here. Well, that looks good. Okay, so enough CSS and HTML. We are gonna dive into script.js for the JavaScript. First, creating all of those variables, grabbing them, document.query selector, and the next button here. Okay, then here we have this previous button. and I'm gonna copy and paste it right here. Okay, so for the JavaScript, I'm gonna say that next button dot add event listener. I want to add this event listener that when it's clicked, I want to run this arrow function here. And what this arrow function does basically is that it's going to go to the next slide. And before that, I just want to go up until here and get rid of this overflow hidden so you can see what's going on in here. Okay, so if I click this, I want this one to be replaced by this slide. So back here in script.js, and to keep track of which slide we are, we need a variable. Obviously, use a lit, not const there. And I'm gonna call that as index of 0. There we go. And when that's clicked, I want to increment it. Then say that slice container. Let's grab those slice container as well. It's document.query selector of the slides-container. Now, what we are gonna do is that slice container dot style dot transform is equal to, I'm using this template literal here, and then say translate x to, okay, so to a pixel, to a specific pixel, and to find that value right here, we need to transition total width of this one. So there has to be, when I click this, it must transition on the right side. So slide width, we're gonna grab all of these slides, document.query selector all, and grabbing all of those slides, then say that slides of 0 is gonna be the first slide. However, all of those have a specific width and height anyway, dot client width. Yeah. We already know this 579 pixels. You can use that as well, but this is my way of doing it, just to make things be a little bit more dynamic than being so much static. Okay, so slide width here and pixels, then go back, and if I click that, you see it's going up there. That's the reason, because this has to be a minus value and not positive. And if I click that, okay, this being replaced, but you cannot see that. Let me go to style.css, add a z-index of 1 here for that not to disappear, and then refresh. Okay, if I click that, you see these images are replaced. Okay, now the second one is not working after that. Yes, I forgot to actually multiply that by this index here. Okay, back here, if I click that, this is the second one and this is the third one. And the same is true for the previous button here. So we got this previous button. Okay, and the previous button, instead of incrementing, is decrementing. Okay, let me show you something. I believe I already prepared that. Okay, so here, when I click the next button, the index is going to be incremented by 1 value, and that is the slide width that gets multiplied by the value that is specified already when we are clicking this next button. The same is true with the previous button. When you're clicking this previous button, the index is going to decrement starting from 0. Okay, it's either gonna increment or it's gonna decrement. And depending on that, it decides, the JavaScript is gonna decide which slide to show. So flip back to here. I'm gonna go back there, and then I go to the second slide, third slide, and I go back. Okay, it's not working. So this is the previous button there. Make sure that those are renamed. Okay, prev button. Okay, that's right. So this is the previous button. Previous button dot click. Index minus slice container, translate x to, okay, that sounds like there is no problem with that. Okay, it's working. Okay, earlier I don't know why it didn't work. Okay, so it's working just nice. Okay, now back into style.css, what I'm gonna do is just get rid of this overflow hidden, just to show you guys that this is actually now working carousel. Okay, you see that it's just doing good. And the only problem right now is that when I go from first to second and to third, and then as I go ahead and ahead, especially when I reach this maximum number of slides, then it's showing empty because we didn't write any code for that. So let's just write that, saying that if I'm sorry guys, your voice of birds if that's annoying. So anyway, if index is greater than slides.length minus 1, then set the value of index to 0. And what you're gonna do is that I'm gonna copy this whole thing in here. Just go to the first slide, and we know that the first slide is in 0 pixels. Okay, going back there, I reach the last slide, and if I click that, I'm in the first slide. And let's write the same code for the previous pattern with a little bit trick that this slide's length minus 1 is going to be replaced with 0, and 0 is going to go above there. But this time we are saying if this index is less than 0. Okay, so slice container.style.transform. Now this is going to change right here. Okay, for that I believe this is the one. So the index is going to be the very last slide, and slide width times this index. And if I go back here and refresh, okay, going to the first last slide, and yeah, that's it. It's just working fine right now. And the only part right now that we have to take care of is that to update this minimap as we are going through these images and slides. Okay, so for that to do, we gotta grab all the minimaps. You see that all those minimap is within, that images or within this item class there. So let's just grab that first. Items is equal to document.query selector all here, and let's grab that item there. Well, what we're gonna do with that items is that in here I'm updating that. So items with this specific index right here dot, actually not that, class list dot add. Here we're gonna add this class of active, and the same is true for this one here. Okay, so flip back to here, and if I what's wrong? Yep, so you can see that it's just working fine. The class of active is being added, but when this is active, I don't want this one to be active. So first we gotta remove all the active classes from the adder items. Items dot for each looping through every single one of these items, and say class list dot remove the class of active. That's it. Now doing the very same thing for this one as well. Yeah, there's a bit of redundant code, never mind right now. Okay, so you see now it's working just good. Yeah, these are getting updated, but again this problem is going to show up. We are going to the fourth slide, you gotta go here, but that's not showing up. That's because it's throwing an error. If you go to console and check that, here's an error. So to remove that error, I need to cut that off from there, paste into here, then again duplicate it and add it into there. Yeah, because when the index is greater than slides.length minus 1, even it's greater than the last slide, then this is not specified, and that has to be specified. Other than that, we are gonna run this line of code here. I hope it's gonna make sense for you guys. Okay, else again, and copy it, go back here and paste it. And if I go back here, well, that looks promising. Yeah, the previous one doesn't work. Why? Yeah, because of this one. We just have to remove that from there. Okay, back in there. We also need to add the class of active for the first slide there, because when the browser shows up, it's already activated back in here. Okay, really? Slide, this active class is already added. It's supposed to work. Oh, yeah, that's not actually this slide here. Just gonna take it. Well, actually, it's the item there. Okay, I didn't misspell that. Good. back here and refresh. Now you see it's already activated, and if I go there, now this is activated, and go there, this one and that one. Okay, we're almost done, guys. And as a final step, we have to make these work. So when I click that, I want that to show up or show that respective image in this slide there. So this is going to be real quick here again. Items dot for each. So for each item, I'm going to say that if, okay, running this row function there, item dot add event listener on click, item dot class list dot add the class of active here. Save it, go back here, and then if I click that, okay, nothing is working. Oh, what is this? That's weird syntax. Okay, now this should work. Going back there, if I click it, now it's working fine. Okay, when I click any of those, you see that class of active is being added to it. And right now, again, we are going to do the same thing we did earlier. I'm going to go loop over every single one of that. When I click the one I want it active, but I want the same active class to be removed from the previous items who are already active. So back here, if I click it, now you see it's working fine. And the final step is that we have to update the slider when I'm clicking any of those. So back in there, I'm saying that items with a specific. Okay, we have another challenge here. You know that this for each function method, it also takes an index beside that, right? So this index is very helpful in these scenarios. So I'm going to call that only I, and you see it in a little bit. What do I mean? That's I, and then items with this index. That's not items actually. This will the slides container. Okay, we are dealing with slides container. The transform slide width times index pixels. Going back, if I click that, okay, finally we are almost done. And the only thing now is remained is to add that smooth transition between those. You see when I click that, there is a very nice transition going between each slide. So how do I add that? Well, let's go all the way up until here and say that slide container dot style dot transition is equal to, I'm going to go for all. However, you can use transform, but all 0.3 seconds is in and out. There we go. Just save it. Copy the very same thing from next button to previous button as well. And now if I just click that, you see that transition is being added. But look at this. When I jump from last slide to first slide, the second slide kind of intrudes and it's just screw up everything. So for that to do, I already prepared this diagram just to explain this for you guys, how that does work. Okay, so here it is. We duplicate first and last slide in opposite position to add a smooth transition. So you'll see it in a bit how I code that, but this is basically the 3 slides that we already created. And there is this last slide, slide 1. We are going to duplicate this slide 1 in last slide because we know after slide 3 is going to come slide 1, and we're going to do a transition of 0.3 seconds. And when that transition is hit, it means this slide 1 is already shown, however, but after 0.3 seconds, slides container is going to transition to the x-axis at this slide width. If you didn't understand, doesn't matter. Just to stick with me till the end, you'll get to know what do I mean. And the same is true for slide number 3. So just remember, we are duplicating first and last slide in opposite directions to add this smooth transition. So how do we do that? We're going to do that using this insert adjacent HTML syntax. So insert adjacent HTML method, insert some content, be it HTML, whatever, into a specified position. That is, and that position is, it takes 4 values basically: after begin, before end, before begin, and before end here. You can pause the video and read it. Let's just go back here and actually implement that with code. So here, slides container dot insert adjacent HTML. In here, I'm going to say that after start, after begin, I'm going to add slides of the slides dot length minus 1.outer HTML. There we go. And then just duplicate this line of code here. And here I'm going to say before end. Yeah. So before end add the clone of 0.outer HTML. Going back to style.css, I'm going to get rid of this overflow heading for you guys to know what actually I mean. Okay. So you can see that the last slide, which was this one, is being cloned in the first position there. And the same is true. The first slide is being cloned at the last part there. So let's just head the code. What do I mean by that? Okay, so that I said that that's necessary for a smooth transition between first and last slide. And to make it happen, I'm gonna actually have to add it here. Well, I don't want any transition between first and last slide when I'm hitting that condition, so I'm setting it to none in both places, both for previous and next button. And the next thing I'm gonna do, I said that here in this place there that it's gonna have a transition of 0.3 seconds, but I want the slide 1 to be shown after a delay of 0.3 seconds. So how do I create that delay? Using that set timeout. Set timeout takes a callback function. Okay. Okay, then set timeout. Here I'm gonna say, actually first copy that and paste it here. Okay, so I'm gonna actually move all of these in there and say that I'm gonna run it after 300 milliseconds. And same is true for this one here. Run that after 300 milliseconds and position all of these up above in there. Okay, now save it. And then if I flip back to here, if I click it, you see there is this smooth transition working really nice between all of those. Yep, but you can see that we are on third slide, but it's showing the second one. And that's because a clone of that is already added. So just to fix this is going to be a real quick fix. So back in here, obviously if I refresh the page, you see that I wanted to start from the first slide. So to start from the get-go, we have to write one additional line of code. And I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to run when the browser is going to refresh. Just slide width pixel. And then if I go back, now you see we are on the first slide. And then this index, this is going to actually have a +1. Let's just first wrap it within these brackets here. Yep, then +1. There we go. And also same thing for the next one here. Now this is not what we are expecting. Now it's not going to go to that 0 pixel. It's now slide width pixels. What else? Here we have an index as well. Let's just fix that too. +1. And where else do we have it? Yeah, also it's gonna have +1. Again, just another quick reminder, +1 is because we added one additional clone of these slides in the first and last part of this slider. That's why we are adding the 1 in there, okay? And also this one is gonna have that +1 as well. Save it, and then if I go back here, okay, that works just good as expected. Well, I think there's nothing else to be covered. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.